One day, Alexander Collins called Blake for a surprise meeting. "Blake, you've done well," Alexander said over coffee. "I'd like you on the Collins Foundation's advisory board. We're expanding, and we need your business savvy for vocational programs." Blake paused, stunned. He'd never imagined himself, the guy who once scoffed at humanity, joining a major charity. "I'd be honored," he said slowly. "I'll give it my all." Alexander smiled, clapping his shoulder. "Welcome to a new journey." From a man fixated on wealth and looks, Blake became someone who understood value lies not in suits or cars, but in how you treat others. His story proves anyone can change and start over, if they're willing to learn from the heart. If you love this story, hit subscribe and join us for more inspiring tales. $1 Million Lesson. When an arrogant manager dismissed a customer and faced an unexpected reckoning. Maggie Collins walked into the Boston Luxury Motors showroom dressed simply, blue jeans and a plain white t-shirt. She carried no designer handbag, wore no sparkling jewelry, and showed no obvious signs of being a potential buyer. Only the brightness in her eyes and the confident stride in her step hinted at the remarkable person beneath her unassuming exterior. As she approached the midnight blue Azure Coupe, a rare and luxurious car, her eyes lit up with excitement. This was the gift she wanted to give her sister, a woman who had always adored unique cars but never dared to buy one for herself. Maggie knew the car's value and could easily afford it, but she never anticipated that the moment she touched its glossy finish, a cold voice would interrupt her from behind. "Good morning, ma'am. Can I assist you with anything?" A man in a sharp suit stepped forward, his eyes scanning her with a judgmental glare. This was Blake Thompson, the sales manager of the showroom. Maggie turned around, offering a polite smile. "I'm interested in this Azure Coupe. I'd like to know more about it." Blake studied her for a moment, then smirked faintly. "Oh, you like this one, huh? It's a very special model, only 15 were made this year. It's not exactly cheap." She ignored his tone, maintaining her calm demeanor. "I know the price. I'd like to see the interior." Blake crossed his arms, a flicker of mockery in his eyes. "Honestly, we have plenty of other models at more reasonable prices. You might feel more comfortable checking out our used car section." His words hit like a slap to Maggie's pride. She wasn't just underestimated. She was instantly dismissed as a serious customer, all because of her simple appearance. A young salesman nearby, Daniel, watched the exchange, his face betraying discomfort. He seemed to want to speak up but stayed silent. Maggie met Blake's gaze, suppressing her irritation. "I just want to see the car. If I like it, I'll buy it." Blake gave a thin smile, shaking his head. "Sorry, ma'am, but this car is for customers who are genuinely interested and have the financial means to match." Maggie didn't need to hear more. She wasn't one to argue or flaunt her wealth to prove a point. If they didn't want to sell to her, she wouldn't buy from them. She turned and walked away, leaving behind a showroom aglow with lights and people steeped in narrow-minded prejudice. But deep down, she knew this wasn't the end. That evening, as Maggie returned home, she couldn't shake the memory of Blake Thompson's arrogance at the luxury car dealership. It wasn't that she felt personally offended. It was the thought of how many others had faced the same treatment, unable to prove their worth. Stepping into the living room, she found her husband, Alexander Collins, reading the newspaper beside a glass of red wine. His sharp eyes immediately caught that something was off. "What's wrong, Maggie?" He folded the paper, set his glass down, and focused on her. Maggie sat across from him, sighing. "I went to see the Azure Coupe today." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Did you like it?" She gave a wry smile. "I did, but I didn't get the chance to show it. The showroom manager, Blake Thompson, shut me down the second he saw me. He assumed I couldn't afford it because of how I was dressed." Alexander's expression grew thoughtful, his gaze sharpening. "What did he say?" Maggie recounted the story, the condescension, the dismissal, the suggestion to check out used cars. As she reached that part, Alexander took a sip of wine and set the glass down with a soft but resolute clink. Too bad for him. He doesn't know he just lost a very important customer, Alexander said slowly. Maggie shook her head. I don't need his validation, and I don't want this to turn into some revenge plot. What bothers me is how many others get treated like that. People who can't prove their worth more than their appearance suggests. Alexander nodded, a glint of approval in his eyes. What do you want, Maggie? She looked straight at him. I want them to realize a person's value isn't defined by how they look. But I don't want vengeance. I want change. Alexander fell silent for a moment. Then a faint smile curved his lips. I think I've got an idea. A way to teach them a lesson. Not through punishment but through understanding. Maggie frowned. Nothing too dramatic, right? Don't tell me you're planning to buy the dealership and fire everyone. Alexander chuckled, his eyes twinkling with mischief. No, nothing that cliché. But a little education won't hurt anyone. He leaned forward, his voice warm yet commanding. Let's give them a lesson in humility. Tomorrow we'll get started. Maggie looked at her husband, a surge of trust welling up inside her. She knew Alexander had a knack for executing ideas with finesse and impact. She smiled. All right, but I expect a full report afterward. Alexander nodded. Of course, my love. Let's see what tomorrow brings. With that, he pulled out his phone and began making a series of calls. A lesson in humility and the cost of prejudice was about to unfold. The next morning at Boston Luxury Motors, Blake Thompson strode into the showroom with his usual confidence. He adjusted his tie, walked past the gleaming cars, and felt utterly pleased with himself. The morning meeting went smoothly. Blake emphasized to his sales team, "We're not here for dreamers. We serve a specific clientele, people who can actually pay. Don't waste time on those who don't belong." Some staff nodded in agreement, but Daniel, the young salesman, stayed quiet. He hadn't forgotten yesterday's incident, and his unease was plain on his face. Just minutes later, an unexpected event turned the showroom's atmosphere upside down. From a distance, a Rolls-Royce Phantom Special Edition glided toward them, its engine purring with the whisper of extravagance. The car stopped right at the entrance, its door opening with the precision of a uniformed chauffeur. Out stepped a man exuding authority, clad in a perfectly tailored suit, his salt and pepper hair impeccably groomed. Alexander Collins. The showroom fell silent. Even Blake, accustomed to the wealthiest clients, felt his pulse quicken. The car, the demeanor. Everything screamed that this man was no ordinary customer. He hurried forward with a polished smile. "Welcome to Boston Luxury Motors, sir. I'm Blake Thompson, sales manager. It's an honor to serve you today." Alexander shook his hand, his smile polite but his eyes icy. "Alexander Collins. I'm here to inquire about a specific car, the Azure Coupe, midnight blue." Blake practically lit up. "Ah, an excellent choice, sir. We have one in stock. A rare model. Only 15 made worldwide. Allow me to show you." Alexander shook his head slowly. "No need. I know exactly where it is." He locked eyes with Blake. "And I know my wife was here yesterday asking about it." The air in the showroom grew tense. Daniel's eyes widened. Blake froze. "Your wife?" Blake stammered. "Margaret Collins. She came in wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. And you refused to help her, assuming she didn't belong here." All eyes turned to Blake, his face drained of color. "Mr. Collins, I think there must be some misunderstanding." Daniel's voice cut through the silence. "There's no misunderstanding. I saw it all. Mrs. Collins was polite, but you treated her like she was beneath you, just because she wasn't in designer clothes." The showroom went still. Alexander nodded slowly. "Disappointing, but I'm not here to argue. I'm here to deliver a lesson. He turned to Richard Mason, the showroom owner, who had just emerged from his office, looking flustered. Mr. Mason, I intended to buy not just the Azure Coupe, but also to replace my company's entire fleet, 7 cars total, and possibly add a few to my personal collection. Mason's eyes widened. A deal like that could meet their quarterly goals in one swoop. But Alexander wasn't done. After yesterday, though, I'm reconsidering whether this is a place worthy of my trust. Blake looked like he might collapse. Mr. Collins, please, let us make this right, Richard Mason pleaded. Alexander stared at him. I have a proposal, a chance for him to learn a vital lesson about human worth. Everyone held their breath, waiting. Blake swallowed hard. I'm listening. Alexander gave a faint smile. My wife runs the Collins Foundation for Children with Disabilities. Next month, we're hosting a major fundraising gala. And you, Blake, will be there. Blake blinked, stunned. Not as a guest, as a volunteer, helping the kids, serving at the event, seeing real value up close. Mason nodded eagerly. A brilliant idea. If you'd allow, we'd also implement bias training here at the showroom. Alexander turned to Daniel. You stood up for what's right. I want you to handle all my car transactions. Daniel was floored. Me? Thank you, sir. I'm honored. Alexander smiled with satisfaction. He ran a hand along the Azure Coupe's sleek surface, his gaze distant. My wife has excellent taste, doesn't she? Blake stood motionless, his perfect world crumbling. But deep down, he knew he'd just been given a chance to make things right. 1 month later, Blake Thompson stood before a mirror in the dressing room of the city's most luxurious convention center. Today's sharp suit wasn't designer, it was a simple volunteer uniform. He adjusted the light blue tie, the Collins Foundation's color, and sighed. This wasn't his usual scene, and certainly not a role he was used to. But for the first time, he didn't see himself as the center of the universe. Inside the hall, the gala unfolded with splendor rivaling any elite event Blake had attended. Powerful businesspeople, famous artists, and wealthy philanthropists mingled, clinking glasses in celebration. But what struck Blake wasn't the opulence, it was the special guests. Children with disabilities, often overlooked by society, were the stars of the night. Their eyes sparkled with joy, their laughter ringing through the lavish space. They weren't rich in material terms, but they radiated a light Blake had never seen before. Alexander Collins took the stage, speaking. We can put a price on a car, a suit, or a mansion, but human worth can't be measured by those things. What matters is how we treat each other, not how much money we have. His gaze drifted downward, to where Blake stood among the volunteers. A shiver ran down Blake's spine. Assigned to assist a 10-year-old boy named Jamie, who had a prosthetic leg from a childhood accident, Blake fumbled at first, but Jamie broke the ice. Hi, mister. You work at the car place, right? He grinned wide. Blake blinked, surprised. You know that? Yeah, I love cars. Mom showed me pictures on your website yesterday. Blake nodded, warming up. What's your favorite? Jamie rattled off models Blake had sold, his excitement unlike any customer Blake had met. Blake realized no one had ever cared about those cars as much as this kid. Not for money, but for pure love. Jamie tugged Blake's sleeve, whispering, Mr. Blake, do only rich people get cool cars? Blake froze. It was a question he'd never considered. He'd always believed only the wealthy deserved the best. But tonight, facing this boy, that belief wavered. He crouched down, speaking softly. No, Jamie. Everyone deserves something awesome in their life. Jamie beamed. I knew it. Mom says the best stuff isn't always about money. It's about people who cherish it. Blake couldn't respond, but inside, something shifted forever. 2 months after the gala, Boston Luxury Motors saw an incredible transformation. Blake Thompson, once a cold, prejudiced sales manager, was a new man. He no longer judged customers by their looks. He no longer ignored those he'd once deemed unworthy. Instead, he listened. Daniel, his former subordinate, became a key consultant at the showroom, thanks to Blake's recommendation for a raise. Blake even invited Jamie and his mom for a special day at the dealership, letting Jamie test drive his dream car. "Still love the Azure Coupe?" Blake asked as Jamie touched its glossy finish. Jamie grinned. "Yeah, but I might have to wait a bit to buy one." Blake laughed. "No rush, Jamie. I know you'll do amazing things, with or without this car." Jamie looked up, then said, "Mr. Blake, I think you've changed." Blake paused, then smiled. He had, and he never wanted to go back. Blake's story isn't just about a car deal. It's a lesson in humility, human worth, and how the most important things aren't what we own, but how we treat those around us. The biggest takeaway? A person's value isn't in their appearance or possessions. It's in the heart they carry. Once obsessed with profit and appearances, Blake Thompson was a man who judged others by their clothes, believing only the well-dressed deserved his time at Boston Luxury Motors. But after the life-changing lesson from the Collins family, everything shifted. In the days following the gala, Blake spent hours reflecting. He hadn't just lost a massive sale. He'd missed countless incredible people because of his biases. That realization didn't just dent his reputation. It forced him to rethink his true worth in work and life. Back at the showroom, Blake set out to change things. First, he teamed up with experts to launch bias-free customer service training for all staff, ensuring no one would face what Maggie did. Next, he pitched a program to Richard Mason, hiring young people from tough backgrounds who loved cars, mentored by Daniel, now a rising star thanks to Blake's support. Most importantly, Blake changed himself. He no longer strode into the showroom like a king. He cared about his team, listened, and learned. Beyond work, Blake kept volunteering at the Collins Foundation. What started as atonement became joy. On weekends, he joined Jamie at the adaptive sports court, helping the boy find better sports wheelchairs and convincing the dealership to sponsor equipment. Maggie Collins, once his victim, now saw him differently. She knew not everyone got a second chance, but Blake had seized his and made it right.